How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry Chapter 4. We're in a cheap hotel, apparently. We are, I guess, on an investigation to find some information or whatever on the kidnapped grandson of a minister. And that has brought us to, well, Hinamizawa, of course. Like, where else is that going to bring us? I mean, it's Higurashi for crying out loud. But, yeah. This is our third episode, and we've already been introduced to the village, to the situation. I would predict or assume that we will continue to visit the village and, I guess, try to find clues, see what's going on, get a little political here and there, maybe beat some people up. I don't know why we would do the latter, but the option is there. Waking up in a cheap hotel in the city was by no means pleasant. Oh, I know. I've been there. I remembered even during the long camping trips we had during grade school, I wanted to get home quickly, counting out the days left on my fingers. Waking up this morning, I was somehow reminded of that. Was it a need to be with my wife when she gave birth, a particular type of homesickness? As a productive member of society, as a public servant bound to fulfill his duties, it was pathetic indeed. Those negative emotions faded as I downed my breakfast, which was surprisingly not half bad. The meeting with the informant that Ueshi had provided would be tonight. Oh, he wasn't the informant? I thought that was implied. Until then, I couldn't just be lazying around. The Onigafuchi Guardians was protesting the dam's construction in various ways. Included in this was a strategy for improving public relations. Which could be categorized into two major forms, combative and peaceful. In regards to the former, as an attempt to keep law enforcement in check, they appeal to the public's sympathy by highlighting the oppressive and inhumane tactics of the police and the brutality of the riot squads. The latter peaceful route stressed how precious the natural surroundings of Hinamizawa was, seeking people who would oppose the dam on environmental grounds. As a part of that, the village of Hinamizawa had invited celebrated zoologists and botanists, I can't speak, as well as environmental groups to advertise the nature surrounding the town. According to the news, in recent years, there had been a group calling itself the Hinamizawa Nature Watching, setting up free sightseeing tours. I would have liked to have taken advantage of the opportunity, but when I called the village administrative offices, they said it was too late to apply for the tour, and they were still undecided as to when they'd be doing another one.
そうですか。次回の募集はありませんか。残念です。
あんた、環境保護団体さんですか？それとも雑誌さんの人？
いえ、個人です。
個人？観光ですかね？
観光みたいなものです。美しい自然を写真に残すのが趣味なんで。雑誌でとても貴重な自然が残っていると読んだので、楽しみにしていたのですが。
I knew there was an article that had something like that written in it, but I had actually read it. Or I hadn't, sorry. Was it this ad-libbed lie not going to work? However, contrary to my expectations, the person I was speaking to laughed happily.
ならあんた、検査来なさい。
Well, that was easy.
村はちょいと慌ただしいけど、歓迎しますよ。
ぜひそうさせていただきます。ありがとうございます。
あんた、明日は何ですか？お車？もしそうだったら、先にナンバーを聞いておきますよ。台湾ないんですがね。
I mean, we already know the deal there. And that was probably related to the checkpoints they'd set up on the way to the village. If I didn't give them my license plate number, I'd most likely be hindered in various ways. Now, I thought about using the car I had borrowed from the prefecture, but I was lost on whether it was okay to tell them the plate number. If the Onigafuchi Guardians was behind this incident, there was no guarantee that they wouldn't be able to find out who I was. I had to play it safe, so I elected to refrain from using the car.
いえ、実は車ではないんです。バスか何かがあれば、それで行きたいのですが。
I think there is. I mean, it was brought up a few times, wasn't it?
バスならありますよ。もうすぐ廃線になっちまうそうですがね。
Ah.
そんでいらっしゃい。 沖宮の駅から出ますよ。
ありがとうございます。探してみることにします。
本当、いつ来ます？Hinamizawaさん、初めての土地じゃ、いろいろとご不安でしょう。教えてくれりゃ、誰か行かせていろいろご案内させますよ。
そんな。そこまでしていただくのは申し訳ないです。
気にせんでください。これも村の自然さ守るための PR なんですから。
Judging by what I saw at the checkpoint, the villagers were at the very least wary of outsiders. And that's why in order to move in and out of the village freely, I had to travel with somebody like Uishi, or side with the dam protests. Having an interest in the natural environment surrounding the village tied into the peaceful type of PR that the village was using. I was a bit against having a watchdog attached to me, but that might actually work out in my favor. The entire village was fired up about the dam protests, so I might be lucky enough to hear some especially candid opinions from the residents. Given that, there was no real reason for me to refuse their offer.
本当によろしいのでしょうか。でしたら本当に助かります。
After that, I was shown the bus schedule and directed to which bus I should get on. Somebody would come and meet me at the bus stop in the village. Sorry, I got lost in that sentence. I don't know how. After showing me around a spot I'd taken interest in, there was no doubt they'd bring me to somewhere like an anti-dam information center. And then, over a cup of tea, they tried to indoctrinate me into accepting their principles and beliefs. Well, if that was their aim, there'd be a lot of freebies involved. The world is about give and take, after all. I couldn't be going in a suit. I pulled some plain clothes out of my travel case and changed into something more casual. After that, after calming down by watching some local television, I left the hotel and set out for Okonomiya Station. The bus route that I was told would soon be discontinued certainly didn't look that way. There was more than enough trips on the schedule, and the number of passengers was by no means sparse. It was the main link to Okonomiya, the only town in the area. The types of passengers that stood out were older folk who didn't look like they could drive and housewives who didn't seem like they had a license. If the area was submerged at the bottom of the lake, it wouldn't matter if there was a bus route. And that's why it was going to be discontinued. In the unnatural scheme of things, I could catch a glimpse of the government's intent in cutting off their means of transportation to bully the village into emptying out sooner. That's fucked up. It makes sense. According to the documents, talks between the Ministry of Construction and the locals broke down quite early. The government decided from the start to take an aggressive stance on the matter. It was like the fairy tale with the north wind and the sun trying to get the traveler to remove his cloak. Why are there missing words in these sentences? That or I'm stupid. Even their bullying had meaning to it. The reason why the Onagafuchi Guardians resisted so violently was because the government was doing unseemly things like that. I was somebody who lived in Tokyo, so for a village or two out in the boonies like this to be submerged didn't seem like a big deal. But I guess for somebody actually living here, it would be a vitally huge problem. Well, yeah. I mean, from the start, and like of this series, when I heard about the whole dam deal, I was totally against it too. Like, I don't really understand what would be beneficial in the long run for a dam, but I also don't care. People live here. This route will be discontinued at the end of this financial year. Thank you for your patronage up to this point. We look forward to your continued patronage on our other lines. Okonomiya Transportation. Gazing lazily at the notice of discontinued service posted inside the bus, I counted down the number of stops until the designated one. Along the way, we passed through the checkpoint without stopping, and they knew what time the bus was coming, so they had opened up the barricade ahead of time. From here on out was enemy territory. My palms had at some point become coated in a thin film of sweat.
浮田水道前へ。お降りの方はいらっしゃいませんか?
I hurriedly pressed the stop request button at the designated stop, as the designated stop was announced. Excuse me, God. For none of the numerous passengers to be getting off here meant that it must be quite a remote place. In actuality, the stop I got off at was so abnormally run down that I couldn't tell it was barely used. As soon as I stepped out, an intense atmosphere, completely different than the interior of the bus, assailed my body. Well, we're here. I know this background from anywhere. Lots of memories here. I think this is where Rena, stalked us in Chapter 1. Right now, Ueshi or Hondaya weren't beside me. And that's right. At present, I was alone in the middle of enemy territory. My adversaries probably thought I was just an ordinary tourist, but that was nothing more than a ruse. But if by some mistake my true identity was to be exposed, it brought back the terrifying words I had heard at the prefectural office, that if somebody was attacked in Hinamizawa with a knife, there wouldn't be any evidence left behind. I didn't seem suspicious, did I? My clothing was currently casual. It was exactly the type of clothing that a city slicker that viewed the countryside as a wholesome getaway would wear. A camera and a knapsack. Inside were various things needed for hiking. It was still only June, and maybe it was unusual, but the sun was shining down like it was already the middle of summer. The fact that I didn't bring a hat must seem odd. No, it wasn't something to be that concerned about. It's alright. I was just a normal tourist. Just normal. Was there anything suspicious about me? If you have to ask that, then there's a huge possibility that there might be something suspicious. Asking that as I turned around to look at the bus that was departing. Ah, well, that's a lovely sight, huh? All the passengers by the window were staring down at me silently. They were staring right at me as if they had seen right through my proud little outfit, just staring and looking down on me. Countless stares rained down like needles on me from the windows open to air out the bus. All that rained down were stares. None of them were saying a word, but all the more their silent stares told me than a million words could, of course. Hurry up and go back to Tokyo, you outsider.
私は
There was no reason for me to speak. My quiet voice was drowned out by the sound of the engine. The bus, as if to torment me, set out slowly, and after doing more than enough to intimidate me, sped off. Well, what a fantastic start. That really shows that we are in enemy territory. A thin film of sweat began to rise from my entire body. According to the documents, it was a village that seemed wary of outsiders. Its population was small as well. If they saw an unfamiliar face, they would be quick to identify that face as an outsider. On top of that, nobody else had gotten off at this stop. It was a bus stop that they normally just passed on by. Somebody actually getting off there. There was no doubt that it had drawn some attention. But this wasn't a slip-up. They were the ones who directed me to get off at this stop. There was nothing to worry about. I knew that I was just nervous since this was my first undercover assignment. My more seasoned colleagues referred to us as the new generation that didn't know how to lose their cool, but that wasn't true at all. In order to calm my breathing down, god damn, I really fucking felt that, I exhaled the unpleasant air residing in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't help but pray that my apprehensions would disappear like the white clouds of exhaust expelled from the bus. There was a small shed there to serve as shelter if it rained, and it was there that I decided to wait. Inside the shed, one wall was plastered with posters advertising the dam opposition efforts. It was like the heartfelt screams of the villagers were recorded on that wall. Inside that shelter, I felt an inexplicable pressure. It wasn't like I had any real relation to the dam project, but it still made me feel hesitant about being inside there. That was just how filled with the force of denial that space was. And inside that uneasy space was a girl. Ooh. Oh, it's Rika. It is young Rika. Well, she was already young, but it's younger Rika, and why do her toes look like that? What happened to her feet? They don't look really good. Is she okay? Why am I pointing out her feet? Inside that shed, covered in words written in broad brushstrokes berating the policies regarding the dam and calling for action, there was a girl sitting there with a drowsy gaze, as if half asleep. The two images clashed so much that I could only stand there dumbfounded for a moment, trapped in such a surreal environment. If I stepped inside, who knew what kind of oafish noises I would accidentally make? I couldn't be disturbing this girl's slumber like that. Having thought this, I gave up entering the shed. It was just a sleeping kid, so why was I so worked up about it? Finally, I realized, this girl to us as a married couple was the very image of our ideal child. Even after numerous examinations at the hospital, we didn't know for sure what our child's gender was. Well, this was back in the 70s or whatever? 80s? Maybe it was late 70s. Well, anyways, it was quite a while ago. I don't really know how advanced their technology was for identifying that stuff. Whether we could tell if they were a boy or a girl was, in the end, dependent on whether or not we can get an image of their genitalia. There was, of course, no guarantee that it was a girl, but with things the way they were, the possibility was high. Even so, Yuki had been saying that the chances that it was a boy or a girl were even. But in my heart, I had already decided that our coming child was a girl. Since that day, I decided that until now, it was so fun to imagine how our child would grow up that I couldn't help myself. Amongst those numerous imagined forms, the one that I thought to be the most ideal had materialized right in front of me. Of course, a little of it was due to the circumstances. In my ideal image, her hair would be on the short side. The girl in front of me, though, had long hair. It was almost as if somebody had taken my ideal and made some small adjustments. It certainly wasn't something unpleasant. Even so, I felt like I was sullying her just by looking at her like that. She had an a divine air about her. And now she's awake, but I guess the real question is, why is she just taking a nap here? That girl with an angelic smile, with a yawn wide enough that you could see her molars, woke up all of a sudden. I didn't mean to peep, but locking eyes with a girl who had just woken up like this somehow made me feel like I was playing a prank on her. I wasn't doing anything shady, but I became flustered. The girl spoke. No, cried out?
Me.
Yep, that's speaking. That is language. Meep? Like that character on the show with the puppets? With the orange hair. I thought it was just one of those greetings kids do. So in order to prove that I wasn't a suspicious person, I responded in kind.
Me.
Alright, well, fantastic. That's not weird.
Me.
Me.
The girl stared at me dubiously with a doll-like expression. Cute, but cold and hard to read. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. There was, after all, an unfamiliar man right in front of her when she woke up, who responded with meep when she said the same. Suspicious, yeah, 100%. She definitely thought I was suspicious.
Me.
Me?
Well, we're definitely making progress here. I don't know in what form, but I guess we're making progress. We were both at a loss for words. No, the only one lost was me. The girl in front of me, as if inquiring about my motives, stared at me intently. In this silence, I felt like I was the one who had to say something first. Damn it. This girl was way better at interrogating somebody than Oishi.
怪しいものじゃないんだ。
Yes, let's just say that. That'll clear us up.
私は
Mi pa.
Yep, there we go. There's the other bit of language that we're used to.
ニパ
Mi pa.
What I could have only described as a cold expression suddenly blossomed into a smile, one that soon infected me. You might be familiar with the term angelic smile. To me, it was like that phrase was created just to describe the smile she gave me. The girl smiling while saying Nipa probably wanted me to return the favor in kind. That's right. This was a kid's form of communication. Having the other person emulate what you just did was a rudimentary form of mutual understanding.
ニパ
Yep, adding the star at the end is the icing on the cake.
ニパ
It was a beautiful afternoon in the early summer. What was I doing?
ニパ
ニパ
Well, whatever. This was interesting in its own way. Yeah, we're making progress in our investigation, I guess. This is Hinamizawa. If making somebody happy sorry, I'm dying. If making somebody happy with just a smile was the work of angels, then this girl was definitely one of them. I couldn't help but pray that my own child, who was soon to be born, would grow up to be like this girl. That strangely gentle moment was finally brought to the end by the arrival of a car. An older person waved at me from the driver's seat, a dry smile plastered on their face.
どうも、こんにちは。遅れて申し訳ないことです。
I'm assuming this is the person we're meeting with.
昨日お電話くださった観光の方ですかね。
あ、はい。
お待たせして申し訳ねえ。いや、野良でちょいと遅れましてね。そしたらと、お乗りくださいな。天気もまんた崩れそうだから、ちゃけちゃけご案内しますよ。
天気ですか？
ああ、ここいらは崩れると早いよ。今日は夕立になるかもな。そうなったら、ほんと写真さ撮るところじゃなくなるでしょう。ほら、乗って乗って。
み
Turning around, the girl was standing right behind me with an intrigued expression. Her body language somehow reminded me of a stray cat that followed you around after you played with it a little. So charming.
あれ、リカちゃまじゃねえですか。ありがたや、ありがたや。
ニパ
A girl named Rika with an immaculate smile, and an old man praising her while rubbing prayer beads in his hands. Of course, that's going to seem weird, but we already know her position here in the village. It was a rather mysterious sight to behold. So the girl turns her face at me, tilting her head a little in a cutesy manner, and after seeing that, the elder introduces me as a tourist who came to sightsee Hinamizawa.
村を観光したい若者なのです。
The girl, Rika-chan, said that with a smile as she clung onto my arm.
まあね、この村の自然がとても貴重だと聞いたんで、ぜひカメラに収めたいと思ったんだよ。私はこう見えても、とっても写真撮影が好きでね。
富竹2号なのです。
Haha. So Tomitake has already been around here.
富竹？
牧野、僕も一緒に行ってはいけませんですか？
そんな、レカちゃまが来ても面白いことなんかなんもないですよ。レカちゃまは境内でマリ遊びでもしててくださいな。
み
A distinctly displeased expression creeped across Rika-chan's face. Being able to show one's emotion honestly on their faces was a privilege young children had.
もしお差し支えなければ、この子も連れて行ってあげてください。
When I said those helpful words, another smile spread across Rika-chan's face, with another nipa, as she clung to me again. Not bad at all. I want this girl to call me Pop. Okay, we're getting a little weird here, buddy. No. Father. Dad. No. What am I doing? Ever since I met this girl, I was completely off my game. Just calm down.
かざなあかんと。レカちゃまはダメだ言うても聞かんしな。知ったらんと、お乗りください。さ、レカちゃまも。
The old man descended from the driver's seat and opened up the sliding door of the van, which had Onikafuchi Alliance Town Council stenciled on the side. Rika-chan brushed me aside, dove into a seat, and began bouncing around right away. It seemed like she was thoroughly enjoying the bouncy springs.
かんれ、レカちゃま。そんじゃお客人が座れねえですよ。だが、こら、レカちゃま。
Girls are nice. I wonder if my child will play around like this too. No. It was written in the guide to raising a child that you shouldn't dote on them. Kids are kids. If you don't raise them strictly without spoiling them,
ふかふかでバインバインでニパ
ニパ
I am definitely going to be a terrible father. I know I am. As I never will be one. It was decided that I would be a doting parent before my child was even born.
さんではお客さん、風景の綺麗そうなとこで適当にご案内しますよ。お昼は食べましたかいね？
Oh, I have. And it was awful. I really fucked up my instant ramen. How can you even do that?
ええ、ホテルで軽食を。
そんですか。では参りましょうかね。
ー。ひなみざわ観光に出発なのですよ。わーいなのです。
君はリカちゃんでいいのかい？
そうなのですよ。フルでリカと言いますです。もう繰り上がりの足し算とかもできますですよ。
Oh yeah? Damn.
ああ、それはすごいな。
お指とかは折ってませんですよ。ちゃんと暗算でできますですよ。
I suck at mental math. You know, kudos to everybody in this world that are able to do mental math even in the most basics of forms. The way she insisted upon that was just too cute. At some point, the nervousness I had about being alone in enemy territory had evaporated like it was never there at all. I had to be at least a little thankful that I met this girl.
じゃあ出発しましょうかいね。南沢大自然ウォッチング。
Hell yeah, God bless America. And Hinamizawa. The old man stepped on the gas with a great deal of gusto. Now this is music. Oh hey, remember this bridge where Keiichi almost died? Well, this is easy. We're just going around, yeah, this is peaceful. And easy. Just going around taking pictures. And Rika is just sometimes in them. You know, with this very chill music. The old man, who was apparently named Makino, was he the same Makino that was listed as the auditor of the Onigafuchi Guardians? He showed me around places that were all breathtaking, and even though I wasn't really here for sightseeing, I couldn't help but be impressed. First of all, this was different from the simple scenery of a city. The scenery of a charming village like this, no matter how mundane it seemed to the villagers, had a tranquil appeal to it. At first, I was only releasing the shutter as part of my tourist act, but midway through I found myself taking pictures out of pure interest. Tourist traps had their own unique allure to them, but there was nothing like that here. I was especially captivated by the unspoiled nature of the place. If there wasn't that whole uproar over the dam, I would want to bring Yukie with me here some other time. I wouldn't recommend that. I wanted her to breathe this fresh air, as well as show her this rejuvenating, verdant scenery.
こんなのが面白いのですか？赤坂は変な人なのです。
いや、こういう円筒状の郵便ポストなんて今はとても貴重だよ。どことなく漂うノスタルジックな雰囲気は渋いと思わないかな。
ひなみざわは楽しいですか？
まあ楽しいよ。退院したらぜひ家内を連れてもう一度来たいよ。その時には生まれている子供も一緒にね。今は出産を控えて入院しているんだ。予定日がもうすぐでね。君みたいな可愛い女の子だといいんだけど。
お客さんはもうすぐおめでたですかいね。そんないけねえよ。奥さん惚れ出してこんなとこに遊びに来てちゃ。
I was momentarily at a loss for words. Yeah, we're kind of blowing our cover here. It was exactly how Makino said. There is no good reason for a man who is waiting for his wife to give birth to be playing around idly in this place. Did I slip up?
まあひなみ沢への旅行は前々からの予定だったんで、妻の家族が付き添ってくれているから大丈夫だし。
そんな年前から予定してたんならもしかめ間に合わんとかいね。いや、そんだったら こんな窮屈な思いさせんと綺麗な観光バスで回れたのに。
It didn't seem as if Makino was actually digging for anything, but if this conversation continued any longer, it would put some unexpected holes in my cover. I halted the conversation by pretending to take another picture.
じゃあ最後の一番景色のいいとこさ案内しましょうかね。
It was slightly before evening. The sun was still burning brightly, but a cool breeze had begun to mix itself into the air. It seemed my exploration of Hinamizawa with Rika-chan was just about done.
一番景色のいいところですか？
そんなリカちゃま、境内からの景色さを置いて他にはありませんやね。
Hearing that, Rika-chan smiled even more.
では赤坂を僕のお家へご招待なのです。
リカちゃんのお家って
神社ですよ。古出神社。高台にありましてね。景色さ見られるんですよ。
フルデ神社。
The girl who called Furude's shrine her home, Rika. If I remembered correctly, her name was Rika Furude. And Furude was, that's right, one of the three families. Even if the Sonozaki family is said to hold all the actual power, it was still one of the old houses that held some authority. No, more importantly than that right now was Furude's shrine. If I remembered correctly, Ueshi had told me, within the grounds of the Furude shrine there were the offices of the Onigafuchi Guardians. And since the land around Furude shrine were private property, the police couldn't set foot there heedlessly. Furude shrine, where even Ueshi couldn't simply set foot into, the main base of operations for the Onigafuchi Guardians. I had been given the unexpected opportunity to enter there. I couldn't have asked for more.
楽しみです。ぜひお願いします。
じゃあ酒々参りましょうかね。天気も少し怪しいですからな。
Definitely doesn't look like it. The sky had suddenly become overcast. Well, alright. It wouldn't be odd if it started raining soon. The cicadas, as if trying to finish their daily allotment of chirps before the evening, cried out even more fervently. And I guess that's the end of that. We'll continue on a little bit more, and then I'll end the episode somewhere probably in the middle of context, because that's just how garbage I am. It is nice to visit Hinamizawa peacefully. Nothing going on, or at least, I don't think there's anything going on. The van stopped in the shrine's parking lot. Also parked there were numerous other vans with loudspeakers mounted on top of them to act as a makeshift propaganda vehicles. On the side of each vehicle was scrawled, "The dam project must be demolished. Defend our homeland to the last. No Ayashiro-sama's anger." Or a slogan of a similar kind. They gave the feeling that even without using the loudspeakers, there was enough to overwhelm any onlookers. Vertical banners were erected in various places. The contents of those banners were similar. They were all objections against the dam, or crude insults towards the government. There were horizontal banners, placards, and so on and so forth. They proclaimed that without a doubt, this was the headquarters of the Onigafuchi Guardians. For Rika-chan, however, this hectic place was also her home.
着きましたのですよ。ただいまなのです。
Rika-chan crawled over my lap and exited the vehicle first. Makino had noticed that I was looking at protest banners.
神社はダム反対運動の事務所も兼ねてましてね。こんな風景もあんたらには反安保闘争みてえで懐かしいでしょ。
Student movements against government policies, movements that bordered on terrorist activity, were at one time commonplace, if only in order to garner global attention. Students holding out in lecture halls, brawling with the riot squads, that charged in. It was an age where wasting one's youth like that was widely considered a road to glory. It was slightly before my time.
私は別に活動家ではありませんので、普通に学び、普通に卒業しました。国の政策にあのような暴力や立てこもりで対抗しようというのには、は
あ、あんたそれはそれで立派な意見さお持ちだね。
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut him off there. It's just I thought he was done talking.
政策に意見したかったら、同じ意見の政治家に投票するか、自ら政治の世界に飛び込み、 正当な手続きを持って意見を主張するべきであると思っています。それが民主政治の原点です。それに暴力で挑戦するなどあってはならないと思います。
For a youngin, you have some fine beliefs. I saw that feeling of respect reflected in Makino's gaze. At that moment, something tugged at my sleeve.
赤坂が何を言っているのか全然わからないのですよ。
Rika-chan, feeling like she was the only one who didn't understand the conversation, had a look of displeasure on her face. That expression was so charming, I had to keep myself from grinning like an idiot. It's often said that a father wants to spoil his daughter rotten. I think I understood that feeling very well.
ごめんね。リカちゃんには難しい話だったね。日本は平和の国だから。自分の言いたいことは平和的に訴えなきゃいけない。暴力で訴えてはいけない。ということさ。
No matter how much I explained, a girl who was just boasting about being able to carry digits over when adding things probably wouldn't understand. It probably wasn't something to talk about in front of Rika-chan anyway.
では赤坂、僕たちの村はどうやったらダムに沈まなくなるのですか？
Even if I regretted my careless words, it was too late now. Here I was at the main headquarters of an organization telling them their way of doing things was illegal. Preaching that violence was not the answer. A complicated feeling had mixed itself in with the respect in Makino's gaze. It was then I finally realized. It wasn't that simple. There wasn't a soul who would argue that what I was saying wasn't incorrect. Using violence to get one's way was something that everybody knew you shouldn't be proud of. However, right now, Hinamizawa was in a predicament that couldn't be overcome with peaceful means alone. The legality of the Hinamizawa Dam project, through the efforts of the various propaganda campaigns enacted by the Onikafuji Guardians, was being called into question. If they further strengthened their campaign, they might be able to suspend or change the construction plans. But that was at the most just a possibility. If the government proceeded with the construction as planned, it wouldn't be long before this place was at the bottom of a lake. If it wasn't for the unrestrained resistance of the residents of Hinamizawa, this place might already have been underwater.
僕たちはここでしか生きていけないのです。都会では生きていけないのです。
The words of this remarkably young girl were all too accurate, carrying with them the screams of the hearts and minds of the residents of Hinamizawa. Of course, there was nothing I could say to respond to that. I could only respond to Makino and Rika-chan's heavy words with silence.
すみません。よそ者が気安く言えるような問題ではなかったですね。謝罪します。
Makino, unsure of how to reply for a while, could only laugh pointlessly.
お客人たちのようなよそに住んでる方々には関係ねえことです。ひなみざわさ気に入ってくださったんなら、お客人のお友達みんなにもひなみざわさ素晴らしいところだって宣伝してください。そういうのが何十年何百年と広がっていけば、この村さダム底に沈めるなんてふざけた計画もやがてはついえるんですかね。
He followed that with a smile that said, "Please don't think much of it." Makino letting me not worry that much really was a stroke of good fortune. Becoming infatuated with the idea of making friends with a little girl had made me completely forget my apprehension at being in enemy territory, Being reminded of this before I was going to step foot into their headquarters might have been a good thing. If we'd had this exchange in the middle of their office, and there was a short-tempered youth in there, they might have come at me. Thinking of how extreme they were, in the worst case, my life could have been in danger. It seemed that I looked quite despondent at that moment. Makino, thinking he had said something wrong, became flustered trying to think of a way to improve my mood.
本当に軽率なことを言いました。本当にすみませんでした。
そんなにお気にされないでください。
今日案内してもらった村のあちこちはどこもとても美しく素晴らしい場所ばかりでした。もう一度来たいと心底思わされました。そんな美しい村がダムの湖底に沈むことになれば必死の戦いになるのもわかります。
I had somehow managed to use my despondent look to change the topic in my favor. After a bit, Makino had returned to his usual high spirits. It seemed he believed I completely sympathized with his point of view.
そうそう。そんな話はこれくらいにしましょう。本当にとても景色さえいいところがあるんです。
行きましょうですよ、赤坂。
Rika-chan, seemingly happy to be free from all the boring and gloomy adult talk, bounded up from the stone steps. And there was no real need to run, but in order to catch up with her, I also darted up the steps. There were several tents belonging to the town council erected on the shrine grounds. Inside the tents were several folding tables and chairs, and a number of older town council members were livening things up with chit-chat. They weren't saying anything incendiary like, the dam project must be destroyed. It was just some relaxed, idle chit-chat between local geezers. The normal sort of calming scenery. Alright, we will end the episode here as we continue to explore the shrine grounds. Not totally in the middle of context, but close. We gotta be cautious, you know? Don't wanna disrupt things or whatever. Anyways, thank you all for watching this episode. Excited to see how the rest of this little tour goes and whatever happens next as we continue to explore Hinamizawa at an earlier stage. So thank you all again for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy jazz, and I will see you all in the next one. Take it easy.